Oh, g'day. It's Les Mauley here once again. Just to come at you, perhaps, what's the word, in irritation, like, but it doesn't bother me, or it don't bother me at all. Is your irritation, if so? Because I'm sat here still, given a few days hence, on the old veranda just outside Mataura. Or a few days since old How Would You Be came sidling up to the down the old long front track there, and became accustomed with old Gladys there, Black Gladys. But yeah, that was something. And I'm glad the old sod just decided to lickety-split it, because I'd have some telling on my hands if local constabulary, if he decided to pay him a visit, come about. Luckily, that didn't happen. Guess the old sod's back up in Dunners at the moment. Being a Friday night, as it is. Same as Dunners. It's not time differentiation. It's not Los Angeles or something. It's the same time and space, generally speaking, Dunedin to Mataura, but, or just outside therein. But I bet the old buggers sat down in the Southern Tavern, which he seems to be so bloody fond of. The Southern bloody Tavern, I tell you what. Holy Christ. But just the other morning, or was it this morning? Or was it just this evening? For all I'm worth at the moment, I couldn't tell you. And I see the sun is just commencing to set, or is it rise, just as you can see it there in the pictorial image, right there. That's the, is it the northeast or northwestern section of the old property? I couldn't tell you. Don't interrogate me, like, but, because I wouldn't stand up for it. I'd crumple like a zigzag rolling paper, which I'm at the moment rolling in my fingers right now. Forgive me, but I'll stoke up in a sec. As I relate, a wee ditty, what happened again today? Or, like I said, was it yesterday or this morning? Or just before? Another bloody one of old Jolly Stout's mates rolled up. Bugger by the name of Alan the Agreeable. Never knew his last name, but we always knew him as old Alan the Agreeable. Why this is as follows. Old Jolly Stout, he being one of the queer bunch of us, which sorted Dunedin avenues and backways, as it were, way back when, actually back in the mid-'80s, as it were, which was a dark time. It was a dark age in the scheme of a more age of more modernity, not morbidity, but modernity. If you can call it that in southern New Zealand, the southern South Island, good God. Back in the mid-'80s, when all raucous hell was going on in the likes of New York City and such, and all these fab-glab American locales where everybody was free-reaching and freewheeling and free-speeching. You reckon that would have gone on in the likes of Dunedin City, maybe Christchurch, but no, not even then. Not even in blood and Christchurch. Save its soul, not that there's an out left of that bugger these days, but, even in Christchurch, oh my goodness me. Be lucky to have a good time down a rubber-strewn back alley at 4 in the morning, down from Latimer Square, as it were, but those are other recollections saved best for another day. But you get the gist of where I'm coming from. Old Alan the Agreeable was one of our group, unmentionable group, that we got to know in one day, or one late evening. Yes, just behind the old Century Theatre there in Dunedin City, Back around 83 it were. And anyway, well, I won't go into details, but we soon found the man entirely agreeable. And there again, no details laid down, but years passed, and we all got on and got away and carried on with our own miserable buggering existences, as it were, and old Jolly Stout got himself a job at the Tyree Bloody Gorge Railway, of all things. Toot toot. Got himself a job as a assistant locomotive engineer. What a manly job. Me, I stayed on the farm in old Mataura, just outside, and was much of a layabout to the olds as they toiled and tribulated in the fields of waving tall stalks, and until they popped off, and then I thought, bloody hell, old Les, you gotta man up and save the old acreage from desolation, and I've been trying my best, but yeah, that once again is another story. But once again, back to old Alan the Agreeable. So, who should come rolling up whenever it was in the last few days but old Alan the Agreeable? Toot toot. This time it weren't a pea green semi-gloss 72 HQ, but of all bloody things. Bloody Marina. Was it a Morris or an Austin? I can't remember. They were all the same to me. Run on 2 of 4, or 2.5 of 4 at the best. But out he steps, stone silent. I'd raised the old gate again after Black Gladys the bitch's topplement of the other previous Arvo, and yeah, I did my best. Hung it on a couple of 6-inch bolts, and that's the best I could do. So I took my long walk up the old back track there, and I said, "Why?" Raised my hat. "Isn't it Alan?" And you know what he said, of course, it's redundant to say, but he did say, he said, "Yes, yes." He said it twice over, like, you know. I said, yes, I thought it were Alan. What the bloody hell are you doing around these parts? Did old bloody, Howard you be send you down? What am I, the man of the moment all of a sudden? Bloody Jesus, old Jolly Stout must have it in for me. He stood there in stone silence, his pale blue eyes staring boars into me. After a few minutes, literally minutes, in stone silence, he says, yes, yes. I said, oh, bloody Jesus, here we go again. That's why I left the old crowd. It is so monotone. You know? Life on the old acreage is preferable, so much in my mind, to the so-called glory days in Dunners, scampering around back alleys and such. Any old hoot, I did open the gate this time. I did open, because he's a harmless old chook, you know, old Alan the Agreeable, and he tentatively turned off the marina, and he tentatively stepped through the across the portage there, as it were, and I offered him a space, and after a few more I offered him another, and by that stage he was a bit looser than he previously was, and my conversation was flowing. Don't know about his, where I do. It was bloody monotone as shit, and he says, yes, yes, for about the 47th bloody time. I said, what's the doings up in old Dunners? How's old Joel getting on these days, since I gave him the boot back in old Mosgiel? And he looks at me with his stone-cold blue eyes, and he says, yes, yes. So that was about the gist of it, you know. So, to wrap a long story, I shuffled him down the long track, and old Black Gladys was glowering in the wings there, behind the tall grass, and I gave her the eye, which she recognized, given long knowing salute. She stepped back a few paces, and I could hear her audibly snorting there, wanting to go old Alan. But seeing as he was a harmless old chook, he didn't deserve any of Black Gladys's retchery. So Off he turned, in his pea-green, bloody marina. It said, as it crested the little rise there and disappeared in a cloud of puffing grey dust. But that were the end of Ellen the Agreeable, and I wonder if I'll ever see him again. And I wonder why he ever bloody come down to 11 miles outside Mataura just to see old Les bloody Mauley. It's a long drive from Dunedin. So I kind of half whistles. I kind of just clucks, really, at old Black Gladys the bitch, and the old ewe comes thundering over to me, crashes into my left knee, and just as a form of gesture, not too hard, just a bit of a bump. So I reach into the back Levi's there, and pops a cap, and of the old Spates. I've got 4 of them once again in my salvos, and old Black Glad, through long-trained acknowledgement, tips her head back, and there we go. So we both start to stagger back after a bit of a zigzag smoke break there. We both start to stagger back to the old veranda, and as old Black Gladys the bitch sits down next to Les Mauley, the younger, look over the western field and then turn the old eyes upon the northeastern corner and say, "Dad, my goodness me, if you could see the state of things now." Good on you.